moguls. It's me, Marshall Sylver, your personal millionaire maker. Getting very excited about my brand new show, 2 hours a day, 5 days a week. I'm going to broadcast live to you. In the first hour of the broadcast, I'm going to give you content, information for better sex, more money, emotional, mental, physical, and even spiritual power. I'll also invite some of my cool multi-millionaire and billionaire friends onto the show to give you more direction, more advice, more strategies and gambits for having it all. The second hour is what I'm most excited about. It's when I get a chance to chat with you. Yes, you. Where you can call in, talk to me, ask me questions. And if you say the secret word of the day, you could win $5,000 cash. At the very least, if you're the most interesting call of the day, you could also win 10 ounces of freshly minted Marshall Sylver 999 Fine Silver. All of that and more. Brand new Mercedes-Benz sedan or SUV up for grabs. My personal Rolls-Royce Phantom up for grabs. All the knowledge to get everything you want and so much more. All you got to do is log in to the show to get information about its release coming up. 2 hours a day, 5 days a week, coming to you live from the bunker right here at Studio Money. I'm Marshall Sylver, your personal millionaire maker.
Let me bring in our hypnotist, Marshall Sylver.
It's Marshall Sylver, ladies and gentlemen, the world's fastest hypnotist.
Well, hello there and welcome home. So glad you're with me. It is a glorious day filled with love, health, opportunity, and potential. Glad to be here with you. We have a very special guest on today's show. Today, we've got a gentleman who the first time I met him, I was doing an event in Utah. And there's about 500 people in the room, enclosed convention space. And I'm standing there, and there's a guest before me, and I don't really know who it is. And I'm standing there just enjoying the room, enjoying the speakers. And all of a sudden, behind me, I hear, and this guy comes racing through the audience, flying up the stairs of the stage on a motocross motorcycle. What a way to make an entrance. I felt like this big after that. I thought, there's no way I'm going to top this. And it was just exciting. His life is exciting. I wouldn't do it. You couldn't catch me doing it because it's crazy and scary and you could get hurt. But for other people's entertainment pleasure, I guess, there are some people that are way more talented than me and way more willing to do some really incredible things. Today's guest on Marshall Sylver Live is Gregg Godfrey. Gregg is an American writer, producer, director. He was raised in Utah. He's most notable for his work on an amazing, amazing show called Nitro Circus, a video series he created in his garage with motocross racer Travis Pastrana in 2003. Please, without any further ado, and welcome to the show, Gregg Godfrey. Welcome home, my brother.
Hey, thanks for having me.
I'm so glad you're here. This has been a long time coming. Ever since I saw you up in Utah, I have wanted to get you on the show. And again, I appreciate you taking the time. I know you're really busy. And welcome.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me. Likewise, I wanted to sit and talk with you that day, but there was just too much going on. So now we get a chance to. It's great.
So for everybody that doesn't know, and there must be one or two, what Nitro Circus is, let them know.
Nitro Circus, it started in 2003. Travis Pastrana was like the Evel Knievel of the Generation X. So Travis came in and he was doing all kinds of backflips and crazy, whatever acrobatic things on a motorcycle that shouldn't be done. So I just came in and produced it. And I was stupid enough to get talked into a lot of this stuff myself. But as this went on, we had a hit show on MTV in conjunction with the Jackass guys and Rob Dyrdek. And then we did a worldwide tour for 10 years. It did pretty well. We made a bit of money, and then we sold that to a company called Rain in 2014, and it was just repurchased through Dana White and his friends over at the UFC. So now we're tied into the UFC. So it's led to some really interesting conversations, and we're both a glutton for punishment, meaning the UFC and Nitro Circus, because it seems like we like to hurt ourselves for everybody's entertainment. But not me anymore, but that was back in the day. So that's kind of what Nitro Circus is.
Well, speaking of that, yeah, some of the stuff that I've seen you do, it's like crazy. I don't want to talk more about the UFC connection in a moment, but it's crazy. So for those of you that didn't figure out what the gist of this is, it's motocross motorcycles, bicycles, school buses flying through the air, doing flips, backflips through rings of fire into piles of glass, and just it's crazy. I see some of these motocross guys and the tricks that they do. It's and more than that, the nonchalantness with which they do it is just boggling to me. And again, I know the mechanics of how they rehearse this, but I for the life of me cannot figure out what gene in a person would make them want to continuously risk their lives like that.
I
And
think
and and I the reason I ask is I have a friend of mine who has a son who did motocross most of his young years. That guy has broken every bone in his body, just like Evel Knievel, broken every single bone in his body. And, yeah, it looks great when everything's working fine, except every once in a while stuff happens.
yeah.
What do you think is the motivation that makes somebody do something like that?
Well, it's inevitable, right? You're going to get hurt. But I think it's really, for me, I found a joy in it. Like, it really makes me happy. There's the adrenaline and there's all that stuff, but there's also something about just accomplishing something that seems so far out and so difficult. You have to practice so hard, and yeah, you fall down, you break a bone, you got to let it heal, you get back up, you keep going. It's the same rigmarole. We've had a lot of friends that have been hurt really, really bad, broken femurs, broken backs, broken pelvises. I shattered my pelvis. Travis has been injured. He's 40 years old and he walks like he's a 70-year-old man. And I don't think any of us would regret any of it, because I think what makes us do it is pure love and passion and joy. And that's what you need in life, isn't
Yeah, you do.
it?
And for me at least, and something that won't kill me. That's the other criteria.
Yeah.
So I get it, and I get the endorphin rush, and I used to skydive, and I used to do a lot of things that I look back on now with children, and I think, my God, I could have died, or
Yeah.
worse, been injured. Death would have been a good thing, but worse, been injured. I also wanted to make note that my buddy, whose son I was talking about, is also from Utah. So is there something wrong with the water there?
I think, yeah, definitely we're raised in the mountains, raised in the desert. So it's like, I think you're just kind of thrust into these kind of activities. So yeah, we're a little backwards, I'd say, for sure.
I didn't say backwards. Just maybe there's no alcohol, so I'm guessing there's got to be something else in the water.
Exactly.
What?
We got to entertain ourselves.
So let's back up and ask that. How did you get into this kind of stuff as a kid? Did your father motocross?
No, my dad didn't race, but what my dad did is he had a drag strip in Salt Lake City, Utah. He was the first one. He put the first drag strip in the Intermountain West. So it was like 1968. It was before I was born. But so I was raised around Top Fuel dragsters and funny cars and that kind of thing. And so automatically I have this exposure to all this wild stuff. And he started to race on Friday nights. He started to race motocross. And so inevitably, because I was like 3 years old, I started racing. And then my dad would have me during halftime at the drag races. He'd have me wheeling my mini bike up and down the drag strip. So I became like a circus clown even back then, my dad's drag strip. And that just inevitably, I started racing professionally. And then as you go on, it's hard to fill that void in life as you get older and you can't race anymore. So you find different ways. And that's kind of, we say freestyle, which is the backflip stuff and the 360s and all that, is like next generation. You race motocross, typically that's how it is. And then or off-road, and then you end up doing freestyle because it's not quite, I know that sounds weird, it's kind of counterintuitive, but it's not quite so hard on the body as motocross is. But that's how I got into it. I think a lot of the people that start racing, especially nowadays, because it's a fairly new sport. You know, motocross has only existed in the world since 1950s, latter part of the 50s, and then the 60s it got a little bigger, and then the 70s it became really big. So it's not that old of a sport. And you know, now most of the kids that are getting into it, their parents have done it, and so they're getting them raising them into it. And you can make some good money at it. You know, it's you used to not be able to make that much, but now you can make some. So it's getting better for kids, and that's how I got into it. Wanted to be a professional racer, wasn't very good at it, so I had to be a promoter because I had a bigger mouth than I could, you know, race and win stuff. So I learned that side of it and just started promoting, and that led to Nitro Circus, which was crazy ride.
So is Nitro Circus a video series or is it live events?
I'd say now, well, that's how it started, you know, in the 2000s. That's what we had to do, right? And it started to when that started to go away, we transferred into live events, and it's more live events now and competitions and stuff like that. So yeah.
And how many live events do you do? Because when you guys do an event, it's usually in what, like a big arena?
Yeah, I mean, well, it's died down a little bit. I mean, we had our big years, 2014, 15, 16, 17, and we were filling, they were mostly basketball arenas, but we were putting 20,000 people in. You know, we sold out Madison Square Gardens, we sold out Philadelphia, we sold out, what was it, Boston, Nashville. We sold out somewhere in Florida. I can't remember. That whole year was a blur. We sold out Salt Lake City. We sold out Northern Cal. We sold out Southern Cal. And that was in 2014, and that was our biggest year. So, and then it just went all over the world. We did all of Europe. We did all of Asia. We did all of Australia, New Zealand. It was just a crazy, crazy time. And now it's you know, we do probably more like 50 shows a year. It's not as big as it was. So
That's still one a week. That's still pretty big. Are you still working in like large arena venues?
yeah, yeah.
Because I'm thinking that's the only place you get guys can do it because you need a lot of space to do what you do.
Well, you'd be surprised. We can fit a lot in a small area, but it's
Yeah, I
nice
know
to have.
you zoom by me on a motocross motorcycle in the middle of a 500-seat room. I know.
Did you know that was coming?
No, I had no clue. Was sincerely freaked out when you zipped past me.
Well, that was the point. Christian saying, "You got to scare everybody. You got to scare everybody." So I really got on the throttle, and then as I was going through, I was just trying to wrap the throttle out, and I'm sure people were like, "What is going on?"
Yeah, it was
That's the
awesome.
point,
What
right?
an entrance, man.
Yeah.
W-
So did you ever have anything to do with this kind of stuff? Did you ever? I mean, you said you skydived in that. Have you ever rode motorcycles or done any of that?
You know, our whole lives unfold in a specific fashion, and I believe everything happens for a reason. And I was fairly reckless as a young man. I was a magician, and you know, magicians do a lot of stupid things. And so everything from hanging by my ankles upside down underneath a crane, you know, 100 feet in the air, uh, to you know being nailed inside of a wooden box and thrown in the water, to all sorts of crazy stuff that I used to do. You know, even as a kid, as a magician, I figured out how to make flash pots. And so I went went and bought black powder and made up my own flash pots. Anybody that's ever worked around pyrotechnics knows sooner or later it's going to blow up in your face. And more
Yes.
than once, it blew up in my face. I'm surprised I can see. I'm surprised I have eyes. There was a couple periods I didn't have eyebrows, and there was at least one occasion where I almost burned the house down. And so yeah, I had my share of crazy things. But the thing about motorcycles is I once was motocrossing in a canyon, and I'm flying down the hill because I had to go down fast to get up the other side of the hill, and my
Hmm.
front tire got stuck in a crevice. And it stopped at bolt stop, yeah, and it flipped over, back over head over heels, and slammed me into the ground. That wasn't enough to stop me from riding motorcycles. I said, "Okay, stupid thing. Watch out for crevices. Don't do that again." And then one day I was riding my motorcycle, my friend's motorcycle, actually in Michigan, and we had a very long driveway, and I got on the motorcycle, and I was only intending on riding on the driveway. But I rode to the end of the driveway. He was up in my room playing with my magic tricks, and I'm riding the motorcycle down. And I intend to do a spin out on the road, and then come flying back up the driveway. Well, my timing was such that I timed it just as a truck was coming over the hill. I got
Oh,
hit broadside,
Oh,
And
wow.
I to this day don't know how it happened. I flipped over the truck. The motorcycle landed in the gutter in the ditch, and I landed on my feet on the other side of the truck. Not a broken bone, not a bruise, massively rattled, but nothing got hurt. But the bike got folded in half.
Well, you'll take the bike folded in half. That's amazing. Nothing happened to you.
Well, again, I really think God was just telling me, I'm going to give you one more chance, dude, to figure this out. Not everything's for everybody.
Yeah,
And so I
stay
go
with
running
me.
back. I go running back to the house because I'm in shock. I go running back to the house. And when I get back to the house, I run upstairs to my bedroom and I tell my buddy whose motorcycle it was, oh my God, I just got hit by a truck. And what does he say?
Where's my bike?
Yes, my bike. Where's my bike? Got to have priorities, man.
That's
So,
typical motorcycles and friends. They always worry about the bike more than their friend. That's very
yeah,
common.
and so for me, I admire people that do that, but everybody's different. Everybody has to make their own choices. And for me and my household, I've told my kids I would prefer you didn't ride motorcycles.
Yeah,
I
fair
just had a
enough.
very close friend of mine. His son just rode street bikes, and shortly after his 18th birthday, plowed into a street sign and died. And so again, the only reason I'm sharing this with you is I want everybody to understand when you go to see these shows and you see these guys perform flawlessly and do flips, and they go off the bike and they grab it with their hand and they flip the bike and they land back on it. Do not diminish what they're doing. Yeah, they make it look easy, but this is anything except easy, and every element of it is dangerous. Every element of it could be life-changing for the people that are performing those stunts. Uh,
Very
so
good.
you obviously you've been doing this a long time. You've been doing the shows for a while. Whose idea was Nitro Circus?
It was mine.
So
I had
did you just say maybe the general public would think this kind of stuff was cool?
Well, we'd seen from our movies, when we were watching it in theaters, I could see what people would respond to and what they didn't really respond to. And we'd made at that point in time before Nitro was started, I think I'd done 15 films and I'd done like 100 hours of television. So I was pretty familiar with like what an audience was going to respond to and not respond to. So I felt like when we did it, first off, we had a hero, which is Travis Pastrana. He's the All-American Wonder Kid. So he's perfect. And then we had a cast of characters behind him, which was perfect. Some came from his side of the country, the East Coast. Some came from our side of the country, from the West Coast. And we kind of put this mob of people together. And then we tried to find out how the timing and everything was going to come together inside these arenas. And boy, from the very first show we did was in Brisbane, Australia. It was a rocket ship. The very first one we sold out. People went crazy. So, we knew we had a tiger, but I'd done enough things that had failed that I knew when we had this, it was off to the races. So we all held on and just rode it as hard as we could. So yeah, I mean, it didn't just happen. We had to build into it. It was about 10 years coming. So.
What is the connection with UFC? Obviously, you guys are both doing arena shows, and clearly, UFC knows how to promote live events, and it's an identical audience. It's thrill seekers. It's people that like to see it. It's Romans, frankly. It's
Yeah,
people that like to see other people in the Coliseum risking their lives while they sit safely in the stands eating popcorn. Um,
gladiators. Yeah, that's a good point.
what is the what's the relationship you got going on with UFC, and what's the plan there?
Well, it's this is the thing. It's like Dana White is an incredible businessman, promoter. I think he took the UFC from a very barbaric, crazy event and turned it into something that the world could digest more. He made it less violent. He put rules into it. He made it more civil. So it made it so that a bigger audience could get involved. But the thing about fighting is everybody understands a fight, right? When you put two people in a room and one's got to beat the other one up, and you understand what's going on. I think what happens with what we do, with what Nitro Circus does, is it's difficult. You've got to be able to explain it to the audience so they can care and get them involved. And so I think it's been a bit of a learning curve for Dana and his crew to see, what the UFC, what works with the UFC and what works with Nitro Circus. This relationship's only been around for about a year, but he's very enthusiastic about it. He's clearly had a lot more success than me at things, and so he really wants to make it work. And however that the future, it's not just typically doing what we're doing. They're trying to create, and I say they because I'm really not that involved anymore, but it's like they're trying to create more sporting events and not just a spectacular, not just a show. You know what I mean? The difference, because that's what he's used to. So I think they've had some teething pains a little bit with it, but it seems like that this arrangement's only been for about a year. So I think now this next year we're going to be in a lot better space where we can unleash a lot more new products for the public. And what I mean by that is from competitions, from some auto, or I'm speaking in Italian for some reason, but with some motorsports competitions, and in conjunction with just the regular Nitro Circus shows. So he's learning. We're getting better and better. But you got to reinvent yourself every year. That's tough to do.
Well, I would agree. It's a weird thing. It's an interesting thing to me. I'm in the live entertainment business as well.
You get it. You get it.
I do. And when COVID happened, obviously everything shut down. And any of us that were in a live entertainment type business, seminars, live entertainment, we got shackled and shut down and couldn't do anything for a long time. And then when things reopened, it was still, everybody was almost in shock. People were almost still in shock and not quite sure whether they should go to someplace publicly or not. And one of the things that happened for me was I realized that things changed. And one of the things that changed was people don't go to movies anymore. Some people do. I mean, minorly, but they just had two major openings. They had Furiosa, which was, the prequel to Mad Max. And then they also had a couple of other movies that were supposed to be major, and they're just not producing anymore. And I have a theory, and my theory is that people don't want to have a live experience that they could have at home outside of their house, but yet they hunger even more for experiences they can't have at their house outside. So while movies and malls are on the demise, they're diminishing as we speak, live entertainment and live events, concerts, sporting events, their attendance is actually on the rise. Movies are off 40% from 2019. Live events are up 30% from 2019. And so, my belief is that definitely banking on live events is a smart thing to be doing right now, because I think at the end of the day, we as human beings we want to connect with each other.
We do.
We want to connect. What is the appeal of Nitro Circus?
If I could, can I back up for a second? I want to ask you a question. Are you doing live events right now?
Yes.
You still are?
Yep.
And what are you finding that an audience gravitates to more than anything right now? Is it the same stuff that you've done, or is it something new?
For us, it's the same thing that we've done, only because we were always experiential. Whereas a lot of seminars and educational events, or even entertainment, you could enjoy via video. You can watch a concert via video, and you get the music and you can see them move, but it's not the same as saying I saw them in person. Because I'm a hypnotist and, I reprogram people's minds, there's certainly a certain amount of impact I can have remotely like this, except the biggest impact I can have is being with someone in person, where I can read all their body language, I can see the nuances, and I can adjust accordingly. So, for us, it's actually the events have gotten better, because I think people are more than ever just wanting to break out and get out of the house and do something, but it's got to be something that they can't get on their own. How about you guys? Have you noticed a difference in the audience and their consumption?
Oh yeah. We've they're I would say that's exactly it. They're more ferocious right now with us. We when you go in and you talk about the movie thing, I mean, that was where I started, right? And it's hard for me to watch that people don't want to go to movie theaters anymore, and it's just changing. And and I'll back up a little bit. Have you seen this thing Kevin Costner's doing? with what
No.
this new series he's got. So he broke away from Yellowstone. And the only reason I know this is because all my buddies that are in the film world when he was doing Yellowstone, he got in a fight with the producer and wanted to go do his own thing. So he just got his own money and he went out and he said, I'm going to go produce my own series and I'm going to release it. He calls it Horizon. He's going to release it into movie theaters. And I'm thinking, this is nuts. Like, I wouldn't do that with my own money. You know, people, exactly what you're just saying, that they're like, what kind of an event gets people out of their people want to be together. And I agree with what you're saying is it's like your events and I am familiar with what you do. It's like, it's such an experience, like to be there physically and watching this take place and watching people change their lives and be hypnotized and watch how you work with them is entertaining. And that is engaging and you can't get it any other way than live. Now with us, with a movie, you're right. That's you can get that at home. I don't know why you would want to go produce it and put it into a movie theater anymore and waste the money on that. But with us, what we're finding is the smell of the bikes, the noise reverberating through the whole arena and everybody being focused at one time on one thing. You know, as long as you can get everybody focused into that one thing that's happening in the middle of that stadium, you're winning. And you can feel the energy when you get to that point, you know, when people are all zeroed in and watching and it takes your guy that's narrating, the commentator, you know, getting everybody there. It takes the writer getting on the mic and setting the stage and and, you know, showing video and all this stuff. And that's where we find success for sure. And curtailing our show where we can just make it, it's just not the same without being there, breathing in the exhaust, smelling it, feeling the noise of the bikes, the vibrations through the arena. Yeah, that's where our focus is right now. I don't know if I answered your question, but I thought that's an interesting point you brought up.
Yeah, you know what? I don't know if anybody knows this. The olfactory sense, our sense of smell, is the most compelling sense we have. More than sound, more than sight, more than taste, more than touch, that we are subconsciously triggered more by something we smell than anything else in our experience. And so, you know, that whole idea of this, the moment you mention the smell of you know, motocross, the moment you mention the smell of those two-stroke engines,
Yeah.
immediately everybody knows what that smell is. I mean, you mentioned, and I'm smelling it right now. And so because that is such a strong emotional trigger for people, not surprised that that's what happens for people. Do you think that it's going to be something that will continue expanding as we watch movies change? And again, a lot of the movie operators, and I feel bad for them, frankly,
I do
but
too.
everything changes. A lot of the movie operators don't want to acknowledge that movies have changed and cinema has changed. Even, you know, the movie theaters um, aren't getting the product that they used to get. The studios are sending it direct to stream, and the studios make the same amount of money with less hassle.
Yeah.
So it's really hard for the cinemas to compete anymore. And what they're doing is seeking to give people a better experience with Dolby and, you know, IMAX and anything they can do, vibrating seats, special food. What do you suppose is the future of live entertainment?
Well, you know, okay, so as you're saying that, we work with a fellow by the name of Post Malone, you know, the artist,
Of
and
course.
and I watch him and I'm fascinated by him, and it's like when he goes and does a show, people they just want to devour the guy. Like I've never been around an artist that commands this kind of respect and people fall in love with him so much they want to be in the same room with him, they want to be in the same, they want to be involved with him. But what primes the pump for all that is his music and getting it out, and then people fall in love with his music and then they, you know, they have that experience and then they want to see him live. It's nothing different than what's been going on for a while, but I feel that's the same kind of thing with us. Is it's like we still have to create social media pieces. We still have to create our songs, so to speak, which are maybe little vignettes and something that keeps the audience excited about wanting to show up and engage with our superheroes within inside of our show. And so it's still, you still have to create a lot of those media pieces and create something that gets people. And I think that's where we've made a mistake in the last couple of years. We've slacked off. And I think COVID, like you're saying, COVID threw us off, but we weren't making the media like we were before. And it was probably because we couldn't get people together to shoot the media. So, now we're kind of catching back up, and we're recognizing that the media has to be in place in order. And yeah, you consume it on your phone, you consume it on your computer, you consume it in different ways, but you still got to have that experience. And then that's got to motivate them so much so that it gets them excited to want to show up to a live event, right? And it's hard. Like, I think I watch Post Malone, or I watch Austin, and it's like the kid creates so much love, and he's got he's got that it factor, right? And I don't know what it is, but he's got that it factor, and so people just want to have a piece of him so bad. And I don't know, outside of our main guy Travis Pastrana, who's getting older now, he used to have that magic. I don't know if we have a star that warrants that much attention. So it's like finding who that next star is going to be, and building the media around and getting people excited, and then see if we can get them to the arena and create a different show. They've got to keep creating crazier tricks, which only gets more and more insane. It's like how we used to ask ourselves when we were doing backflips, we're saying, "God, how long until we kill somebody?" And then it went to a double backflip, and then it went to a triple backflip, and then it went to 360s, and luckily, that hasn't happened. But yeah, it just, you got to keep up in the ante. Where does it stop? I don't know, but you have to. So yeah, that's what we're working on, to get people in the arena and I think then if we can pull that off, then we'll get people excited about coming back in the arena to watch, and it feels new, and they feel that excitement, and they want to touch their heroes, and we've got to do a little better job with our media and some of the things we're doing.
So is it osmosis? Is that what people seek? Do they want to fly through the air and let go of the motorcycle and do those flips without the danger of actually crashing? Is that what this is all about? Same thing with Post Malone. Post Malone is a good example of kind of the anti-celebrity.
Yeah.
Kind of the guy, if he was walked into a room and you didn't know who it was, and there was somebody else that was more mainstream beside him, you wouldn't say Post Malone was the celebrity. You'd say, no, that guy has to be the celebrity. So do you think it's because it certainly is cyclical? Think James Dean. We go through cycles of liking to, love rebels, and then the rebels get us in trouble, and then we say, oh, we don't like rebels anymore, and then, and then it's boring, and then we love rebels again. Is it osmosis?
I think so. That's a good way to put it. Yeah. I mean, but you got it. So, you can become numb too. So like you say, you see a backflip and then it doesn't get you excited anymore. So you got to tell the story good enough to where you understand what that guy's going through in that backflip, and for the audience to care, so it comes down to storytelling for us anyway. And and creating.
Well, and I think,
go ahead.
I was just going to say, I would agree with you. Dana White is brilliant. And one of the things that, just what you said just now, because I'm a hypnotist, and all I do whenever I hear things or experience things, my brain starts going through the files and saying, what's the appeal here? Or what's the lack of appeal here? Why wouldn't people like this? Or why do they like that? And the thing about an exhibition is, yeah, people can get bored. After a while, they go, okay, the elephant can stand on its back feet. Oh, the bird can fly through the air and jump through the hoops. That's awesome. It's a bird. That's what it does. But there's no real rooting for anybody. But you take a show like, I forget what the generic name from them would be, King Arthur's Court. You take the night tournaments where the people are riding on horses, and they've got their gauntlets, and they're, attacking each other. Everybody knows watching that it's fake, that it's all, scripted. But people still like it because they get to root for their team. I have the same feeling, by the way, about professional sports. At this point, there's way too much money on the line for everything to be just a competition at this point. Yet it has to appear to be a competition. But like, you take a sports team that's getting badly beat, and the sports team that's getting badly beat if they just get badly beat, their fans just stop going. So they got to give them a win every once in a while, just so that their home team comes back and watches them again. So yeah, I think on the part of Dana, that's brilliant to make it a competition, because now every single show is different,
Yeah.
and the crowd can root for whoever they want to root for. Uh, how big is the business for this type of exhibition?
Like dollar wise, or what do you mean?
Yeah. What kind of business does this kind of
Um,
business do?
well, I mean, a couple $1 billion industry, and that's where we kind of fit, is in that genre of action sports, motorsports. But motorsports is a lot bigger. But the most money we've ever made, from 2000, I think it was from 2013, 14, and 15, we were doing $100 million a year. So for us, that was a lot of money. I mean, it's nothing compared to like what the UFC does, but for Nitro,
What
this
is?
little Nitro Circus, that was a lot.
Yeah, that's a
Yeah.
lot. That is a lot. What's your role been? Are you the producer? Are you the promoter? Have you always worked with outside promoters to fill up the events, or how does that work?
Yeah. Yeah, we worked with outside promoters. I really look at myself as a creator. I'm too ADD to be the guy that's making sure that all the things get ready to go into the stadium and get all this done and that done. I like the creative element of it. I like the push of when an audience doesn't care anymore, how we can get them involved again, and that kind of thing. I like the creative. That's my place. But I think at times too, I've had to, when you're starting a business, you have to, I mean, this, you have to wear all the hats. So you have to create what did you call them? The flash pots with the black
Yes,
powder.
flash pods. Yeah,
You have to do
fireworks.
all that.
Yeah.
And that's how we started. And so I think I know how to do all the business. I'm not great at all of it, but I think my strength is the creativity and just I love turning it into art. I love exciting people with our genre or the things we understand in this world, and then turning it into art. That's definitely where I fit. So
You have kids?
I do. I have
How many?
3 kids and 8 grandkids.
Ah, lovely.
I
And do
probably don't.
your
How many
are
grandkids
your
do you have?
I don't have any yet. I started late with the babies. My first son was born 6 hours before my 49th birthday,
Oh,
and
right on.
so
You were
yeah,
smart.
I smart. I was blessed. I
Yeah.
think about all the broken families there are, and I'm grateful that I don't have any kids from anybody other than my one true wife, for the kids' sake, not for anybody else's sake other than my kids' sake. And yeah, she's an excellent
Yeah.
mom. She's the best mom and the best wife for me ever, and life is really really good. Do your kids do motocross?
Yeah, kids and grandkids. In fact, I got a grandkid coming over. I got a little track in my backyard, and I've got one of them coming over today to ride. I get choked up when I'm old and I'm sensitive now, and so I get choked up when I start talking about that because it's a love and a hate, right? It's a great thing for him to get involved with, but man, I do not want to see him get hurt. So I've
Yeah.
changed. I wasn't like that with my own kids, but I'm definitely like that with my grandkids.
I think that's a pretty good observation about people and grandkids versus children in general.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would agree with that. That's why, again, I survived 2 accidents that could have killed me, and I know that I did. And
Car
so,
accidents or motorcycle?
no, with the motorcycle on both of those, I was thrown probably 50 feet when I hit the crevice, and
Oh yeah, yeah.
then when I got hit by the truck, I flipped over the truck. So it I in my brain have replayed getting hit by the truck and realize any seconds either direction, and I would have lost a leg at the least, and I would have lost my life at the likeliness. So yeah,
Oh,
I don't want my kids.
well, and then you start. Yeah, you don't want your kids to go. So this is a whole nother discussion we always have amongst ourselves too. Is it's like you don't want your kids to experience that. You experience that, but you think about it. Driving down the freeway, and I know this is kind of a mute argument, but it's like I have a friend that she was driving home late one night, and a guy on meth was coming the other direction, head-on collision, paralyzed her. She's 26 years old. She lives in a wheelchair. She really doesn't have much of a life, and it's it's pretty rough, you know, and she wasn't doing anything crazy or out of control. And these guys that go out and risk their lives all the time, they risk their life, they break bones and nothing dramatic happens. And then all of a sudden something
Hold
really
on.
bad
I want
happens.
to point out. I want to point out what you just said. Yeah, they break bones, but nothing dramatic happens. I'd say that's dramatic in my book. That's for
But you
sure.
know what I mean? It's like we can all get hurt at any given time in life. And it's like if you choose to live this kind of a life, you know what you've signed up for, but you just hope and pray that things you're going to get looked out for too. But sometimes that isn't always the case. But if you've chose to live in a you know, a much more conservative lifestyle, it still doesn't mean you're going to be safe, right? Does it?
No, no, of course not. And though, it's also understanding, you know, what is our choice because while they didn't die if they broke the bone, obviously, there's a consequence to getting your bones broken on a fairly regular basis and what it ends up doing to you long term. But again, it's irrelevant because what's the antithesis? Doing nothing, being boring, safe all the time. At the end of
Yeah,
at the end of your life, you die. The question though was, did you ever actually live?
yeah,
And
I
and
agree.
and
Did you?
so, you know, for my children, my son Sterling wants to do what I do. He wants to be a speaker and a stage hypnotist, and he wants to, you know, perform. And I keep prompting him. I keep saying, no, you want to be a banker. You want to be a banker. That's what you want to. You want to be a banker, and you want to fund people that get on stage, but you want to be a banker. Um, if not Nitro Circus, what else would you have been doing?
I think I'm an entertainer. I would have been just a filmmaker, but you know, I don't know. I worked in Hollywood. I worked for Disney. When I first came out of college, I graduated. Like I raced my whole entire life. And then I quit racing when I was 20, 21. I went back to college. I got my degree. I went and worked for Disney. Hated it. I was at Disney for a year. I ended up working on a show called Home Improvement at the time. And I really enjoyed working with those guys, but I was a grunt, you know, it just didn't work for me. I needed more action. I needed something more interesting. So I knew how to film. I knew how to put things together I wasn't always sent in this direction. You know, I just wanted to tell stories. And for some reason, I just keep getting drawn back into this, motorsports, action sports world. But as I get older, you know, I'm 55 now. I see that I constantly keep coming back to sports. So I really, truly love sports. I don't care what it is. I don't care if it's badminton. I don't care if it's tennis. I don't care if it's motorcycles. I don't care if it's F1. I love sports. It's an interesting thing because I was going to bring this up when you were talking a little bit ago about how you keep stuff fresh and interesting. Or like the danger in certain things. Dana had us when there was a huge UFC fight. I think it was last fall, and it was at the Delta Center in downtown. It's where the Jazz play, and he gave us front row tickets, and it was Corriere, I think, and there was the main fight. And here these guys are; they're two top athletes, right? The place was on fire. The Salt Lake's got kind of crazy sports fans. I'm kind of proud of that because they are psycho. Maybe they just get too bored. They don't drink. I don't know. Well, a lot of them drink, but they love their sports. So, you know, this fight's building and building and building. And I cannot remember the other guy, the other fighter. But these guys are pretty good friends, you know, but they respect each other, but they know one's going to knock the shit out of the other one. You know, they're going to get knocked out. It's not probably going to go three rounds. One of them's going to get knocked out. And all of a sudden, the one kid comes around, does this almighty grand roundhouse, hits the guy in the head. Boom, he's out, hits the ground. Whole place erupts. I'm watching him. He gets down. He kind of helps him up. And then he comes to. The guy that was knocked out comes to. And he goes, oh, thanks, you know. And they're hugging each other and telling each other it was a great fight. And you know, they both commented that they're so lucky that they get to do this for a living. And I'm looking at them, and I'm older, and I'm thinking, you guys get your heads kicked in, but they both just made $2 million for that fight. It's not a bad deal. But
And they love it.
It's a spectacle, right? And so it's like, I think you choose these. I think when we're younger, we choose these routes. As we get older, maybe we would change them. But I think as we get older, we start to find what we identify and what matters to us. So we just all we can do. And I kind of lost my train of thought. I started thinking about.
So you were talking about how much you love sports and how much you love, producing those kinds of events, and you keep coming back to that. And I get it, because part of what you already described was, I said, did your father do motocross? And you said no, he had a racetrack. Well, it's a connection to your dad, yet your own identity.
Absolutely.
And I think that's if we had a good relationship with our parents, we want to be like them. If we had a bad relationship with our parents, we want to do the exact opposite of what they did.
How did you get into hypnotism? I mean, that just seems like
Good question.
What was it?
And a good question, and very much in alignment with what I was just talking about. My father, when he met my mother, was a Catholic priest. And he meets my mother and realizes this no sex thing is stupid. Decided that he wasn't happy with that strategy. And so when I was a kid, I didn't have a good relationship with my father ever. Never. He was a very hurt man, and I discovered hurt people. He was a raging alcoholic. And for whatever reason, a lot of his pain was directed at me. I think because I was his son and he felt like I could take it. Maybe on some level he thought he was toughening me up. But
Yeah.
I wanted to be either a hypnotist, an attorney, or a pastor. And I chose the one that was most honest, that I could make the most money with. So the fact of the matter is that ultimately everything's hypnosis. The description you were just giving, the example you just gave about the fighters, they're knocking each other out. It's how I kind of feel when I watch Major League Baseball, and you've got two competing teams, and yet they're all in the same profession. They know each other. They switch teams and they play in the same locker room, and they're switched to another team, then they're playing against each other. But when you watch them, even if they're on opposing teams, they'll give each other a hug or a fist bump, or they'll joke with each other while they're standing on base, because that's the point. I think the lesson here, no matter what, is Steve Jobs talked about this in his commencement address to Stanford University. He said, above all else that you do in your life, figure out what you love, because whatever you love, that's your life. And I would agree with that. I love entertainment. I cannot get away from it. The educational side of my business is infinitely more profitable and more valuable than the entertainment side of my business. Yet I love entertaining. I miss being on huge stages in front of 15, 20,000 people at a time. And it's just something that once it gets in your system, I don't know that it ever can leave unless you have a very bad experience with it. Actors that have massive success in their early career and then just walk away from it. They didn't walk away because they had massive success. They walked away because of the other things that come with that. For every Post Malone that everybody adores, there's a Post Malone that wishes everybody would leave him alone.
I gotta, when we did that event together, I'm thinking we're pretty electric when we come onto the stage, but hold on. You got up on the stage and you started going, and I'm like, wow, this guy is good, because you started getting people wound up and getting things going. And I'm like, man, I don't think we use machines and noises and everything, but you just have it. And like, you are naturally, I don't know if you've always been kind of gifted or if that's just something you've learned over your life, but you definitely have a presence when you get on stage. You can tell you've done it a lot. And I kind of wished, I think when I was a kid, I think I went to one of your shows. I think you did one in Salt Lake.
Yeah.
We saved up and went down there. And I think I actually went up on stage and you tried to hypnotize me and you told me to get off. So I think.
Yeah,
I
you
think
took one too many bumps on the noggin, man.
Oh yeah. I'm sure I wasn't cooperating, but
no, it's probably way too dangerous for you.
Yeah. I think it's fascinating what you do. And it seems like when you take people under, do you change their lives, do you feel like, or is it just entertainment?
Both. You know, the reason I love hypnosis so much is I was introduced to hypnosis at a school, at a show at my high school when I was 16 years old. And I got on stage, and the hypnotist hypnotized me and gave me a suggestion that when he said, "Sonny boy," I'd stand up from my seat in the audience. I'd walk back to the stage. I'd fall on my butt. I'd roll my pant legs up above my knees. I'd climb on his lap, and I'd put my thumb in my own mouth, and I'd say, "Sing it again, daddy." And I remember going back to my seat at 16 years old thinking, these are my peers. I'm not going to humiliate myself in front of all these people. I'm already, socially inept and very, very emotionally insecure. Not going to do it. And yet he says, "Sonny boy," and it was weird. I thought to myself, I don't have to do this thing, yet I find myself doing it anyway. And then I went home that night and I thought, was I hypnotized or was I actually just doing what he told me to do? And I thought, what difference does it make? You
Yeah.
did it. You did it. And so I realized that the hypnotic show is often most people's first, if not only, exposure to this technology. And so that's why I've always held the show sacred, meaning there's a lot of people that will do blue material, do very adult, dirty hypnosis. They'll hypnotize some grandmother to hump the chair like it's her lover. And then I'm thinking, well, give me some hypnosis to get that image out of my brain now. But the thing for me is, while it sells tickets to an entertainment show, it's hard to make the transition from grandma humping a chair to helping people realize the hypnosis and reprogramming your brain can make you a millionaire. That's what it can do. And so I've always taken the other approach, held it very in very high esteem, and made sure that people saw that's the connection. And on some level, I'm guessing that's you, because I've obviously had minor exposure to you. Except I've looked at you, I research our guests before they come on. You're clearly a family man and a guy that cares about his family and cares about other people. And I would agree that that osmosis thing, that it's not just a show. When people go and watch Nitro Circus and they watch what people do inside of Nitro Circus, that the bottom line is, it, at least in my opinion, inspires them to say, what could I do that was more fearless? How could I expand and maybe risk a little bit more in my life? I don't want to, flying off a ramp, 120 feet in the air or 150 feet in the air, but maybe I should ask that girl out. Maybe I should launch my business. Maybe, and again, you're grinning a little bit because there's really no comparison, except there is. If I'm the
Oh,
person that's afraid to talk to somebody of the opposite sex, and then I look at this guy risking his life for my entertainment pleasure, it's like my brain has to at some point go, duh, dude, ask her out. You're not going to die. You're not even going to break a bone, most likely, depending on how you ask her.
yeah, I think that's our message. Absolutely, you're spot on. We don't say it, but that's our message for sure. Be
Yeah, and
fearless.
again, I like messaging. I like hypnosis. I like names. I like titles. I like headlines. And for me, Nitro Circus is a brilliant name because it says it all. Says it all. We are a motorized circus. It says it all right there. And then the fact that it's nitro, you can smell, again, the fumes comes back to it. It's that trigger. And then the sub headline for me is, what's in it for the audience? Uh, living your life, not the rider's life, living your life on the edge. That's what it is. And I think that for so many people, I can watch people do those tricks, and for me, for sure, I imagine it's me. I ponder what it would be like to be weightless, in front of an arena with 20, 30,000 people, to be flying through the air with this giant piece of metal right in front of me, but it's flying through the air too. And I've got to manipulate not just my body, I've got to manipulate this massive machine before we both come crashing to the earth and, potentially die. So I think that your audience is watching that thing and they're living through osmosis. They're feeling that adrenaline rush. Their sphincter is tightening and they're saying, I'm so glad it's not me. Have I said anything that was inaccurate,
No, no.
including the sphincter muscle tightening?
Yeah, I'm sure that happens a lot in coming out of the shows. And there's such a release. I remember the lead singer of Metallica when I was a kid. He would say over and over that he was getting a hard time from certain mothers and this and that, because of their lyrics were crazy or whatever. But he goes, you guys are missing the point of what we do. It's like it's such a release for people to come to our show. It's such a release. It's an adrenaline. And I remember I pondered that and pondered that and pondered that. I was probably 16 when I heard that. And as we've developed our show out, I think that's exactly these people. And even if they're so bored in their life or they're scared or whatever's going on, for that 2 hours they're in our arena, they can shut off and they just can focus on that, and they get almost filled, and that it's a release. And it's like, yeah, they come out of there and say, not only can I do my life better, I'm going to do my life better. And it's like, I think that's something I've always strived for, because you want people to, and they come up to you afterwards. And I have never, ever once had a person tell me that our show sucked. I'm always proud of that. I'm really proud of that. Like, I guess somebody would tell me that, but I never heard it. So out of all the shows we've done and the people we've met, I'd say that's a good thing. Maybe some people just didn't want to tell me. I don't know.
Well, I mean, I think it's kind of a hard thing to say. You can't say your show sucked when you're, talking to the guys that just risk their lives to entertain you. It's like, gosh, thanks a lot. And
well,
and so
you know, people though, they'll say that.
Oh God, yeah. I get
just
people,
got a text.
back in the. Go ahead.
We're talking on each other. I just got a text from Christian. He said, you really need to get to know Marshall better. He's a stud. He's a badass. So.
Yeah, you want to hear something funny? I just got the same message from Christian regarding you. So that guy's working both sides. That's what he's doing.
Yeah, he is.
So getting back to it, I've had people when I've done my hypnotic show at colleges come up to me and they'll be backstage and they'll say, I claim this campus in the name of Jesus Christ. And I'll grab them by the hands and I'll say, awesome, me too. Let's pray together. And like they'll freak out because their brain is fried thinking those two could not exist mutually. They couldn't exist together. And again, I love God deeply. And the fact of the matter is, my belief is that any higher power, no matter what your higher power is, wants you to live your life at the utmost, wants you to utilize whatever gifts you've been given. You ask, do I have a natural gift for being on stage? Maybe, I don't know. The thing is, I've been on stage since I was 7. And so if it was a natural gift, then, it maybe, except the other side of the coin is I found what I loved at 7 years old. I found entertainment, magic specifically back then, but entertainment in general was what I fell in love with early on. So it is my identity. And I still believe the reason that you got into motocross, the reason you're right where you are right now, is you loved your dad. And the reason you liked being the circus clown on your mini bike in the middle of the raceway was you loved the attention. It's not even the attention for me, and I don't think it's the attention for you. It's joyful attention. It's the fact that I know that person is smiling and their life is a little bit better because I exist, and I exist today in their life.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's you can go home and you can sleep a little better, and you wake up the next day and you got a little more of a kick in your step, and you hope someone else does too. So I agree. That's all we're all just trying to get along.
Yep. This day has absolutely flown by. And I could talk to you forever. I love what you do. I love circus. I'm a circus kid. And so because of that, I just love circus, and I love any kinds of circus. Before we wrap up, anything you want to share with the audience? How do they get a hold of you? How do they find you? How do they follow you?
I'm just on Instagram and Facebook. It's just Gregg Godfrey, and I have 4 G's in my name. Looks like it's up there on the screen. And yeah, if somebody wants to private message me or whatever. And Marshall, I want to come to one of your shows, one of your hypnotist shows at some point.
Yeah, I'd like you to come to our next. Have you been to Turning Point? My seminar?
I think so. I mean, I've been to a Turning Point, but I don't think your Turning Point. No.
So yes, we have Turning Point coming up in July. I would love to have you come check it out. I think you'll love it. It's in Las Vegas, so next door to you. And I would love to have you as my guest. All you got to do is let me know you want to be there, and I'll put you on the guest list.
Right on. I'm there.
Cool, man. Gregg Godfrey, great to have you on the show. So glad you're here. You're amazing. Your accomplishments are astounding. Make sure you check out Nitro Circus. Make sure you go follow Gregg on all his social media platforms. And until we chat, make it an awesome day.
Thanks, fellas.
Take care, friend. You bet. What an awesome show. Hey, it flew by, man. Just like, bam. Good stuff. If you are watching the show right now, I too would like to see you at Turning Point. I've got 3 sets of tickets. First 3 people who call 1-800-92-POWER. 1-800-92-POWER. When you do that, I will get you set up with free Turning Point tickets worth $3,000 a piece. All you got to do is pick up the phone, call 1-800-92-POWER, and tell Anthony that I invited you. Make it an awesome day. Until we meet again, God bless, take care, and I'll see you on the other side. Bye for now. Hey there, moguls. It's me, Marshall Sylver, your personal millionaire maker. Getting very excited about my brand new show coming up 2 hours a day, 5 days a week. I'm going to broadcast live to you. I'm going to give you content, information, emotional, mental, physical, and even spiritual power. I'll also invite some of my cool multi-millionaire and billionaire friends onto the show to give you more direction, more advice for having it all. All the knowledge to get everything you want and so much more. All you got to do is log in to the show to get information coming to you live from the bunker right here at Studio Money. So stay tuned.